Stop scrolling. Something just happened that could change the entire Ukraine war. New reports are shaking world capitals. Crimea, the place everyone said could never be taken back, may no longer be under full Russian control. If this is real, the global balance of power just shifted. But here's the truth most headlines are hiding. Stay till the end. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, where we break down the most important global events with clarity, context, and facts. Today's topic has sent shockwaves across international media and political circles. Reports emerging from multiple sources claim that Ukraine has achieved what many once believed was impossible: regaining control over Crimea. This region has been at the heart of geopolitical tension since 2014, symbolizing power, identity, and military dominance in Eastern Europe. For years, Crimea was considered Russia's most secure territorial gain, protected by layered defenses, naval power, and strategic geography. Now, these reports suggest a dramatic reversal may be underway. However, it is crucial to approach this development carefully. This video does not claim confirmation, but examines reported movements, signals, and reactions that have fueled this global conversation. Understanding Crimea's importance helps explain why this news matters so deeply. Crimea is not just land, it represents access to the Black Sea, military projection, and regional influence. Any change in its status would affect Ukraine, Russia, NATO, and global security calculations. In this video, we will analyze what reports are saying, how credible they are, and what this could mean moving forward. Stay with us as we break this down step by step, separating verified information from speculation, while exploring why the world is paying such close attention to Crimea right now. To understand why reports of Crimea being retaken are so shocking, we must look at the peninsula's strategic and historical significance. Crimea has long been a prized region due to its geographic position along the Black Sea. It hosts critical naval facilities, including the port of Sevastopol, which has been central to Russian maritime power for decades. When Russia took control of Crimea in 2014, it was seen as a decisive and permanent shift in regional power. The move reshaped international relations, triggered sanctions, and set the stage for prolonged conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Since then, Crimea has been heavily fortified with air defenses, troops, and infrastructure designed to make any attempt to retake it extremely costly. Military analysts consistently described Crimea as nearly impossible to reclaim through conventional means. That is why recent reports have captured global attention. If Ukraine has managed to disrupt Russian control, even partially, it suggests significant changes in battlefield dynamics. It may indicate new tactics, improved intelligence, or weakened defensive capabilities. However, it also raises questions about the scale and permanence of these developments. Are these reports referring to temporary advances, symbolic actions, or sustained control? These distinctions matter greatly. Before drawing conclusions, we must evaluate what is actually being claimed, who is making these claims, and what evidence supports them. Only then can we assess whether Crimea's status is truly changing, or if this is a moment of uncertainty amplified by the fog of war. Reports suggesting Ukraine has retaken Crimea did not emerge from a single source. Instead, they began appearing across various media outlets, analysts' statements, and social platforms, each presenting fragments of information. Some reports point to increased Ukrainian activity targeting logistical routes, command centers, and military assets within and around Crimea. Others reference symbolic actions, such as strikes, sabotage, or the weakening of Russian operational control. Importantly, most credible sources use cautious language, emphasizing that these developments indicate pressure, rather than confirmed full control. This careful wording is essential in conflict reporting, where misinformation can spread rapidly. Intelligence assessments often lag behind events, and official confirmations take time. Analysts also note that modern warfare does not always involve clear front lines. Control can be contested, partial, or temporary. This makes headlines both powerful and potentially misleading if taken at face value. Another factor fueling these reports is the visible reaction from Russian authorities, including tightened security measures, restricted movement, and defensive repositioning. Such responses suggest concern, though they do not automatically confirm a loss of control. Ukraine, meanwhile, has maintained strategic ambiguity, neither fully confirming nor denying specific claims. This approach keeps pressure on adversaries while avoiding premature declarations. In this section, the key takeaway is that reports alone are not proof, but patterns of activity, reactions, and strategic behavior together paint a picture of a highly unstable situation. Crimea's status may be under serious challenge, even if the final outcome remains uncertain. Military analysts play a crucial role in interpreting these reports, offering context beyond headlines. Many experts emphasize that retaking Crimea would not necessarily look like a traditional occupation with immediate flags and declarations. Instead, It could involve gradual erosion of control through sustained pressure. Analysts point to Ukraine's evolving capabilities, including long-range strikes, intelligence coordination, and precision targeting. These tools allow Ukraine to disrupt supply lines and command structures without launching large-scale ground assaults. If Russian forces find it increasingly difficult to operate effectively, control becomes more symbolic than practical. Experts also highlight the importance of logistics. Crimea relies on key transport routes, including bridges and corridors that can be targeted. Disruption of these routes weakens defensive sustainability over time. Another point analysts raise is morale. Reports of instability can affect troop confidence and civilian perceptions, compounding operational challenges. However, analysts also caution against overestimating progress. Crimea remains heavily defended, and any sustained shift would require long-term presence and control. Most agree that if Ukraine is making gains, they are likely incremental rather than absolute. This interpretation aligns with the careful language used in reports. From an analytical standpoint, the situation appears fluid rather than settled. What matters now is not a single headline, but whether patterns continue. Continued pressure, consistent disruption, and sustained presence would indicate a meaningful shift. Until then, analysts urge audiences to stay informed but skeptical, recognizing the complexity of modern warfare. Global reaction to these reports has been swift and intense, reflecting Crimea's international significance. Governments, institutions, and observers worldwide are closely monitoring developments. Western nations have largely avoided definitive statements, emphasizing the need for verification while reaffirming support for Ukraine's sovereignty. This cautious response reflects both diplomatic responsibility and the high stakes involved. Any confirmation of Crimea changing hands would have major implications for security policies, military aid, and negotiations. Russia's reaction has been notably defensive, with officials dismissing claims while increasing security measures. This dual approach aims to project strength while addressing internal concerns. International organizations and think tanks have released preliminary assessments, focusing on indicators rather than conclusions. Markets have also responded, with fluctuations reflecting uncertainty about escalation risks. Media coverage varies widely, from dramatic headlines to restrained analysis. This divergence highlights the importance of critical consumption of information. Public opinion is also being shaped rapidly, especially on social media, where narratives spread faster than facts. For many observers, the possibility of Crimea being retaken symbolizes a broader shift in the conflict's trajectory. It challenges assumptions about permanence and power. However, global actors understand that symbolism alone does not equal resolution. What matters is whether any reported changes can be sustained and verified. Until then, the international community remains in a state of watchful anticipation, aware that Crimea's future could influence not only Ukraine and Russia, but the broader global order. From Ukraine's perspective, reports about Crimea represent both opportunity and responsibility. Strategically, reclaiming Crimea would be a monumental achievement, strengthening Ukraine's negotiating position and reinforcing national morale. Symbolically, it would affirm the principle of territorial integrity that underpins international law. However, Ukrainian leadership understands the risks of premature declarations. Overstating progress could backfire if circumstances change. That is why official statements remain measured, focusing on long-term objectives rather than specific claims. Ukraine's strategy appears centered on sustained pressure rather than dramatic announcements. By targeting infrastructure, logistics, and military capabilities, Ukraine aims to make control increasingly difficult for opposing forces. This approach aligns with modern asymmetric warfare principles. Ukrainian officials also emphasize international support, recognizing that sustained assistance depends on credibility and transparency. Managing expectations is crucial. The narrative must balance hope with realism. Domestically, these reports energize public sentiment, reinforcing resilience after years of conflict. Internationally, they signal capability and determination. Yet Ukrainian leadership must also consider civilian safety and humanitarian implications. Crimea is home to diverse populations whose well-being remains a concern. Any shift in control carries responsibilities beyond military success. In this context, reports of Crimea being retaken are not just tactical updates, but reflections of a broader strategic approach. Ukraine appears focused on shaping conditions for eventual outcomes rather than rushing towards symbolic victories. This patience may prove decisive as events continue to unfold. Russia's response to these reports provides important insight into the situation's seriousness. Official statements consistently reject claims of Crimea being retaken, emphasizing continued control and security. At the same time, observable actions suggest heightened alertness. Increased checkpoints, restricted access, and reinforced defenses indicate concern about potential vulnerabilities. Such measures are common in contested environments, especially when uncertainty rises. Analysts note that even the perception of threat can force significant resource allocation. Russia's strategic messaging aims to maintain domestic confidence and deter external pressure. Acknowledging weakness could undermine broader narratives about strength and stability. Therefore, dismissals are expected regardless of underlying realities. However, history shows that defensive postures often intensify during periods of genuine challenge. This does not confirm loss of control but suggests pressure. Russia also faces the challenge of maintaining logistical lines to Crimea, particularly under sustained disruption. Protecting these routes becomes increasingly costly. Diplomatically, Russia has urged caution against what it calls misinformation, appealing to international audiences to wait for official verification. This messaging strategy seeks to counter viral narratives while buying time. The gap between statements and actions is where analysts focus their attention. It is within this gap that the true state of affairs may be inferred. As long as heightened security continues, speculation will persist. Ultimately, Russia's response underscores how sensitive Crimea remains. Any perceived threat to its control triggers significant reaction, reinforcing the peninsula's central role in the conflict. Beyond immediate military considerations, the reported developments in Crimea carry broader geopolitical implications. If Ukraine is indeed gaining leverage, it could alter diplomatic calculations across Europe and beyond. Allies may reassess strategies, timelines, and levels of support. A shift in Crimea would challenge long-held assumptions about the conflict's limits. It may also influence discussions about future security arrangements in the Black Sea region. Countries bordering the region would likely adjust defense postures in response to perceived instability or opportunity. International law and precedent also come into play. Crimea's status has long been cited in debates about territorial sovereignty. Any movement toward reversal would reinforce norms against territorial acquisition by force. However, it could also heighten tensions, increasing the risk of escalation. Global institutions would face pressure to respond carefully, balancing principle with stability. Economic implications cannot be ignored either. Energy routes, trade flows, and investor confidence are all sensitive to regional security. Even unconfirmed reports can influence markets and policy planning. Public discourse worldwide reflects these concerns, with commentators debating potential outcomes and risks. In this context, Crimea becomes more than a battlefield. It is a symbol of international order under strain. The reports, whether ultimately confirmed or not, highlight how interconnected modern conflicts are. Local developments ripple outward, shaping global perceptions and decisions. Understanding these broader implications helps explain why the world is watching Crimea so closely. Amid intense coverage and speculation, it is essential to address the role of information and misinformation. Conflicts create environments where incomplete data, bias, and deliberate narratives coexist. Social media accelerates this dynamic, allowing claims to spread faster than verification. Headlines optimized for attention can blur nuance, leading audiences to assume certainty where none exists. This is why responsible analysis emphasizes sources, language, and context. The phrase, reports say, matters because it signals ongoing assessment rather than confirmed fact. Viewers should look for corroboration, consistency, and official acknowledgement before accepting conclusions. Analysts also examine indirect indicators such as troop movements, infrastructure damage, and policy shifts. These signals often provide more insight than bold claims. Understanding the information landscape helps audiences stay informed without becoming misled. Media literacy is crucial, especially during high-stakes moments like this. The possibility of Crimea being retaken is significant, but the process of confirmation takes time. Recognizing uncertainty does not diminish importance. It enhances credibility. By maintaining critical thinking, audiences can follow developments responsibly. This channel aims to provide context rather than hype, helping viewers navigate complex stories. As events continue to unfold, separating verified facts from speculation remains essential. Doing so allows for informed discussion rather than reactive judgment. In an era of instant information, patience and analysis are powerful tools. As we conclude this analysis, it is clear why reports about Crimea have captured global attention. Whether these developments represent a temporary disruption or the beginning of a fundamental shift remains to be seen. What is undeniable is that Crimea's status is once again a focal point of international concern. The situation highlights how dynamic and unpredictable modern conflicts can be. For Ukraine, these reports symbolize resilience and strategic evolution. For Russia, they represent a challenge to long-held assumptions. For the world, they serve as a reminder that geopolitical landscapes can change rapidly. The coming days and weeks will be critical. Verification, sustained patterns, and official statements will clarify what is truly happening. Until then, Cautious observation is the most responsible approach. Avoiding premature conclusions allows space for facts to emerge. This moment underscores the importance of staying informed through reliable analysis rather than sensational claims. If Crimea's control is genuinely shifting, it will have lasting implications far beyond the region. If not, the reports still reveal vulnerabilities and pressures shaping the conflict's next phase. Either way, the story is far from over. We will continue to monitor developments closely and provide updates as credible information becomes available. If you found this breakdown helpful, like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for ongoing updates and in-depth analysis. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next.